Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good afternoon, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the News 8 Live Desk. Hope you're having a great day so far. Matt Jaworowski joins us once again as the final part in his series detailing everything you need to know really regarding those POW camps here in Michigan during World War II. The series is fantastic. It is finally complete. Everybody can check out all 5 parts now. They are available over on our website, woodtv.com. Matt, thank you so much for stopping by. And again, we talked a lot about it earlier, and really we have every single week, but thanks for writing this story, this entire series, really, because as somebody who's not from here, and even people, we've heard from people that have lived here their entire lives, and they didn't even know this was a thing. So again, this has just been an incredibly awesome series to really read through and see in real time and all the way through.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's part of the reason why I fell in love with this job in the first place, is being able to tell those stories and just really diving deep into topics, whether I'm passionate about them necessarily or not, but just be able to tell those stories of people here in West Michigan. I think it's a really cool angle that deserve to be explored. So I'm happy that it's out there.
Absolutely. And, I want to get into that final part in just a little bit, but we also want to do kind of a recap of everything that was detailing in this series already, and also just kind of, your own envision or really what you wanted to accomplish with this story. So that kind of leads into my first question. What was really your ultimate goal when you first kind of set out wanting to do this series in the first place?
The goal really is just to learn. I mean, that's kind of really how a lot of these series really come about, is I come across a story or I come across a topic, and if it grabs my attention, my hope is that it'll grab others as well. And so just spending, weeks and weeks learning and researching and finding all these unique stories, and as you learn, you come up with these different story ideas and the different angles to approach, a topic as something that's so big and important like World War II. So to kind of go down those rabbit holes and kind of come up with what I believe are some pretty interesting stories that really show the differences between the Americans and the Allies during World War II, and kind of the differences between that American spirit that we saw back then in the 1940s, and in some ways we still see today.
Well, you touched on wanting to be able to tell these amazing stories, and that really does encapsulate how I felt when I was reading this 5th and final part. I mean, just an incredibly amazing story, no matter which way you look at it. I highly encourage everybody to check this one in particular out, because not only is it a really awesome way to view the history and of this entire series, but then also kind of have a little bit of fun with this story. Just kind of from an outsider perspective, I found myself, really being engaged with the story. Don't want you to give away too much away of the story, because we want a lot of people to go ahead and check it out for themselves, but kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis, so to speak, of just what this story is all about, this 5th and final one.
Yeah, so it is a bit of a recap. In a lot of ways, I think it touches on a lot of the topics that were presented in the first 4 parts. But basically, it talks about the POW camps and how overall I think it's pretty apparent that it was a success. Like that the way it impacted the war, I think, was certainly a net positive, not just for the Americans, but even in relationships afterward, and kind of allowing the Americans to assert some form of moral superiority as far as following the Geneva Conventions, and all that stuff was pretty apparent afterward. But it wasn't a perfect system. There were many escape attempts. Almost all of them were completely fruitless, and some of them hilariously so, which is one specific example in the story from Camp Lakewood in Allegan that I had to include, because that was one of my personal favorites, kind of reading and learning more about these. There was one incident that happened to be in Michigan, out of Owasso, where there were 2 women who essentially helped 2 POWs escape from their prison. And it wasn't anything crazy. They were out kind of drinking and have a good time for a night. They were caught the next morning. They didn't make it even really out of town. They didn't make it far. But it became this giant national story of these 2 women who potentially faced treason charges and potentially even the death penalty for essentially a night out on the town. And obviously the story kind of follows through that process. They did not end up being charged with treason, but they certainly did not off scot-free. And unfortunately, from what we know about these two women, even their lives beyond that, this is really an unfortunate mistake or incident that followed them their entire lives and really had a negative impact. So it's not exactly a happy ending, but there's a lot in the story that kind of touches on all those different pieces, talking about the Americans' relationship to the POWs, how important the POWs were to the American economy at that time, especially here in Michigan, filling those gaps for our farmers and businesses are really hit hard because so many of our men, instead of working, were fighting overseas. So a lot of stuff to explore and some entertaining tidbits in there as well. So hopefully you guys will go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's what I sort of meant by just being entertained by it, because it really is just such a snapshot in history. You probably wouldn't see something like that happening today, just the stories and the, other elements to this story, this final part, that, again, highly encourage everybody to check out. If you're going to check out this entire series, make sure you wrap it up. If you've been with us through the first 4 parts, might as well make it this 5th and final one. But Matt, before we let you go, obviously the series has done really well. And as somebody who has been the driving force behind it yourself, is there something that is there a really big takeaway that you want to get from this series, or maybe you want people to kind of think about a little bit more after they read it, or maybe there's a favorite part or section in one of these stories that it's always going to kind of stick with you?
I think part 3, just being able to tell a little snippet of the story of Ernst Fluter, I think is what I found the most fascinating. I think if there's one thing to take away from it, it's to understand that things aren't always black and white. There are a lot of really complex issues, especially right now in the political climate that we are in right now. And I think it's easy to just fall in line one side or the other, and to make a lot of blanket statements and form some really hard blanketed opinions, when really there are a lot of things that there's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of complications, there's a lot of nuance involved. And I think as people, we tend to forget that sometimes. And I think if there's something to take out of this series, I think that's it. We've seen it even from something as dark and as deadly as World War II and as brutal as the Axis versus the Allies. There's still nuance there, and it's not just bad guys versus good guys. There's a lot of gray area there as well.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think that is the perfect place to end this. Matt, thank you again for not only putting together this piece, but joining us every single week and giving us the opportunity to not only revisit the stories, but then also hear from your side, the author behind them all. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming on one last time.
Thanks, Phil.
Of course, yep. No, we'll see you next week with a whole new topic to discuss, a whole new Sunday story. So we're very much looking forward to that. Hopefully everybody will tune into that one as well. But I want to thank everybody for sticking around for this latest edition of the News 8 Live Desk. I'm Phil Penarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.